Well, it's the NATO allies will determine the future of NATO, of course, but I believe with the given circumstances, NATO will likely to survive even this major crisis. Back in 1949, NATO was established to protect the so-called Western lifestyle, which means open market economies, democratic regimes, and individual rights against threats perceived from outside of the NATO area. So back in 49 in the 50s, the only threat outside of the NATO territories was the Soviet Union. Therefore, it was perceived to be established against the Soviet Union, which is not a wrong assessment. And but nowhere in the text of the NATO treaty, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, there is nowhere in the text is there any mention of any country as the enemy. So therefore, after the collapse of the Soviet Union or the dissolution of the Soviet Union, NATO survived because it was not specifically and solely established against the Soviet Union, but against the threats from outside of the NATO territory. And when we go back to 1991, when in December 91 the Soviet Union vanished, and NATO countries have assessed the situation and have seen a number of threats coming from the posed by the international terrorism, some local conflicts in the Balkans and Caucasus and the Middle East, elsewhere in other parts of the world with which some of the NATO allies, such as the Netherlands, France, and others, have close historical links. Therefore, the outright judgment that the opponent is not there, so therefore NATO should finish its mission is not correct. NATO is the most powerful military organization in the history of mankind, and therefore there are threats still perceived from outside of the NATO territory, such as international terrorism and some local conflicts which might escalate into a major confrontation, and NATO will likely to survive regardless of what happens during and after the Ukrainian war.